Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, my very special friends and colleagues and fans of Power and Influence. I thought that my intervention today should cover a topic that's not very often covered, at least not in our line of work, which is a survival guide for the PR expat, as we would call it. I've been an expat almost all my career, that is 22 years, and I've worked in over 33 countries across 5 continents. I walked on my own and I enjoyed it very much on the streets of Brazzaville in Congo, and I looked across the river where Kinshasa was in DRC, in the Democratic Republic of Congo. I absolutely loved Lebanon, the people, the atmosphere and everything it stood for. I was followed several times by the beautiful, in inverted commas, new SVR, previous KGB on the streets of Kiev in Ukraine. And I could tell you stories and stories, but that's not why I'm here today, and that's not what I wanted to talk to you about. What I wanted to talk to you about, and I've written all these on 2 post-it notes, is the survival guide if you go as a PR expat in another country. Primarily if you go there as a consultant, not a staff, because the two are very different in terms of what you get, the level of protection, the compounds that you may be living in, etc., etc. So allow me to start. The first point I want to raise is the one about drinking alcohol. There are countries in the world, and I'm sure you're all very much aware, primarily those Islamic countries where alcohol is forbidden to be drunk in public, even privately, to be smuggled into the country. If you are a woman, the situation becomes even worse. You don't know in some places what is in that alcohol. The drinks can be spiked, etc., etc. So if you can, try to do without it, especially if you're there as a consultant or as an advisor, or if you're not there for a very long period of time. If you are there as staff, probably you would be living in an enclosed, safe village, i.e. compound, and in there, in a safe space, you can do anything you want. The second point I would like to make is the one related to parties. Now, as staff, please yourself. Go to any party you want, do whatever you want. It's entirely up to you. But if you are there as a contractor, you are not there to show everyone how well you can dance Despacito or do dirty dancing. It's not advisable to draw attention on you because pretty much you are there to do a job, do it well, get it done, jump on a plane and go back home. You are not there to be a topic of conversation, to show everyone how amazing you are and how gorgeous you are at anything other than what you are there to do. I'm sure you understand exactly what I mean. The third point I would like to make is your passport. Please do not leave the hotel you are staying in or even the compound that you're staying in and go out, go shopping, go partying, go to explore the sites or whatever with your passport on you. Have a copy of your passport at all times in your briefcase, in your handbag, wherever you want to put it, and leave your passport in a very safe place. I always leave my passport with the hotel reception. I never have it on me because, God forbid, in case something happens, I get mugged, I get robbed, I faint on the street, someone kidnaps me, whatever. I know that when the situation recovers, I can go grab my passport, jump on the first flight out and go home. So please don't have it on you. Money is another point that I need to speak with you about. Being a woman, and of course, wearing a bra, I always have my credit card, not my debit card, in one cup of my bra and a pretty healthy stash of cash in that country's currency in my other cup. Now, very important, before you leave, especially if you go to less than democratic places, shall we say. So, for instance, if you go to East Africa, West Africa, if you go to Asia, and by Asia, I'm not talking Hong Kong, I'm talking about some developing nations in Asia or Latin America or something, please call your bank. The reason is they will, if they are not aware or if they are not used to your credit card activity showing the craziest places in the world, as my bank is with my credit card, what they are going to do, they are going to block it. And the last thing you want where you're in a foreign place and you need money is to suddenly realize that you have to spend 3 hours on the phone with your bank in the UK with some huge, enormous roaming charges to try to explain to them that yes, it's you, your card hasn't been stolen, but you need it, etc., etc. So do all this both with your credit card or debit card or whatever, and tell your bank that you're going to be in XYZ for a period of time. The same happens with your mobile phone, especially if you take your personal mobile phone, as I do all the time. I have been a customer of Vodafone UK for probably as long as I remember. And the reason I've never changed them, the reasons are twofold. Number one, they are the only mobile network in the world that provides me with coverage, either them or their local partners in the craziest places that I have been. And number two, their customer service is absolutely outstanding. And always, now moving on from Vodafone, always let your mobile provider know that you are going to be in XYZ. So again, they do not block your phone because they consider that your subscription or whatever monthly plan you have is going to absolutely skyrocket and you're not going to pay your bill. So these are all things you have to arrange before you go. It's for your own safety and for your own peace of mind. The other point I would like to make is transport. Do not be tempted, as many of us are here in the UK and in the States and in other European countries, to use Uber. Let's say, let's use Uber in Moscow, or let's use Uber in Tehran, or let's use Uber in Pretoria in South Africa. No, please use only legal taxis, i.e. legal taxi companies, or arrange for the hotel that you're staying, and I'll get to hotels in 2 seconds, to send a car to pick you up. If you are staff and you're going there as staff, your employer should provide you, ideally, with transport, and someone should be waiting for you with a little name card as you go through arrivals. If your hotel cannot arrange for transport, again, take a very legal taxi. Do not be tempted by people who pull at you, shout at you, scream at you, tell you that they can give you an amazing deal if you travel with them, blah, blah, blah. Do not do it. Keep in mind that I'm a woman. And okay, I'm approaching a certain age right now, but for 22 years, I've been traveling on my own. So I'm telling you all this from a solo woman traveler perspective. I lived it, I've been through it, I've learned my lessons, and I hope that you will learn something from what I'm sharing with you. Hotels. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if your staff It's easier because your employer will arrange everything for you. If you're a consultant, please do not try to save money, even if you have to pay for more yourself and your client won't compensate you on your accommodation. I cannot stress enough how important a good accommodation, 5 stars, 4 stars, if you can't afford 5 stars, is. Security, safety, comfort. These come first, irrespective of the 20 quid or $30 you may be saving a day. It's not worth it. I remember I made this mistake once, years ago, when I went to Malta on a project. I booked into a 4 star Howard Johnson. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if they still have Howard Johnson. It was a horror show. For 2 nights, I could smell sewage in the room. It was filthy. It was disgusting. I learned my lesson. And the next time I had to be in Malta, because the project lasted for a while, it was the privatization of a certain energy company. In Malta, I put myself straight into the Intercontinental, and I didn't regret it for a second. It's not about being posh. It's not about being, I don't know how you may call it. It's about being safe, sound, knowing that you get a good night's sleep, etc. I'll give you another example, which pretty much will contradict what I've just said. The first time I went to Baku in Azerbaijan, that was about 15 years ago or something like that, my first time in Baku. I booked into the Hyatt because that was the first expat sort of hotel that I was very familiar with from the States, etc. Now, I don't need to tell you that I was bitten by bed bugs in the Hyatt in Baku in Azerbaijan. So I only got it wrong so far twice, Malta and Azerbaijan. That particular Hyatt. I haven't got it wrong since. So it's a lottery indeed, but go with a very safe bet. It's for your own safety. Now, there's something called a buddy system. And what I mean by a buddy system, make sure that someone knows at all times, once you finish your work, of course, where you go and what time you're supposed to be coming back. If you're alone, if you have no other colleagues with you, or you don't have your family there, or I don't know, it depends on everyone's circumstances, tell the reception, I am going to have dinner at X, or if you're working there throughout the weekend, say I'm going to have lunch or whatever at X, and I expect to be back by Y. The reason being, if God forbid something happens to you, someone will start ringing the alarm as to where you are and why you haven't been back. Don't keep that a secret. And please make sure that you befriend the staff, primarily the reception staff and the doorman in the hotel where you stay, or if you live in a camp, in a village, make sure that you befriend someone there, and there will always be someone to wonder, hey, where's this person? I haven't seen him or her in quite a while. Food and drinks. Now, to me, this is obvious. To some of you, this may not be obvious. I'll give you the example of a colleague of mine who decided the first night we had dinner in Kathmandu in Nepal, he should have beef stroganoff. That sounds very ominous and normal. Ma, it's anything but, because I advised him and some others not to have beef stroganoff because Nepal is largely a Hinduist country, and in that area of the world, the Himalayas, cows are sacred. And I don't think there are many people in Kathmandu, let alone in Nepal, who understand that beef stroganoff is something to be, it's something normal for a Westerner. Now, I don't need to tell you that this particular colleague had the beef stroganoff that evening for his dinner, and for the next 5 days, he was bedridden with food poisoning that we almost had to arrange for him to be medevaced out of Nepal. Keep it plain and keep it simple. The same goes with drinks. And by drinks, I don't mean alcohol, which I covered earlier. It's up to you. Again, it's a personal choice. I mean fruit juices. I mean tea. I mean things that our bugs and bunnies, i.e., our own microbiome, and we don't have the bugs, we don't have the bacteria in our bodies capable to handle the bugs and bunnies that people living in other parts of the world have. So, unless you want to spend some time on a toilet and consistently and not be able to charge your client or do your job as staff with your employer, keep it simple. And if you drink water or if you drink Coca Cola or even a beer or whatever, please make sure that you are the one who opens the cap of the bottle. No one else does it for you. And under no circumstance are you to drink one of those pints or get a glass of Coke from one of those spray things that go into the glass. Everything, make sure that everything you eat and drink is absolutely sealed. I had another colleague, he was absolutely amazing. He would eat meat, he would eat a lot of things, but every time I used to work with him for quite a while, every time we would go to less than known places, I worked with him a lot in Central Asia, in what we know as the stunned countries. He was a very, very intelligent engineer. The only thing he would eat would be boiled rice and grilled fish. Even if he had to eat this for 10 days. One time we were there for 10 days. I remember we were in Astana in Kazakhstan. And this is the only thing he ate for dinner, boiled rice and grilled fish. And I asked him, Asfar, aren't you getting fed up of all this? He said, it's worth my health. He was absolutely amazing. And he's never been ill once in his life due to traveling overseas. Also, I need to warn you about sex. And what I mean by sex, I mean one night stands. While it might be okay to do it in France, Germany, Netherlands, whatever places where you and I may, even the States, find safe or normal or whatever, don't do that in Middle East. Don't do that in Latin America. Don't do that in Africa. Don't do that in Central Asia, especially if you're a woman, because you can end up in a lot of trouble, and it's not worth it. Feminine hygiene. Now, ladies, if you need pads or if you know that your period is coming, and my apologies, gents, because this is a delicate subject, but it needs to be talked about. Do not assume that you will find a pharmacy. Do not assume that if you find a pharmacy, they will have your pads or any pads for that matter. And do not assume that they have enough pads for your needs. So please take some with you. Prescription drugs, medication, prescription medication. I have my own prescription medication. And for instance, when I go to Middle East, I'm not going to say which country, I go through an entire interrogation at the passport control and at customs as to why I'm taking these pills, where's the letter from my doctor, blah, 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 blah. So there will be countries where if they find your medication or if you declare your medication, they are going to ask for a formal letter from your GP or from your doctor. Do not take your medication with you I'm not talking about, again, Amsterdam, Germany, US, whatever. I'm talking about Africa, Middle East, Asia, Central Asia, Latin America, etc. Make sure that you have a letter from your GP saying that you're supposed to be on that medication, how much medication you're taking daily, your condition, etc. Also, make sure that you have enough pills to last you for 1 week longer than your expected return date home. Things can happen, planes may get cancelled, volcanoes may erupt again, as they have done already above Iceland. So you never know what happens. Don't think that you can find, number one, your medication in that country. Don't think that you will find a doctor willing to prescribe it. Don't think anything. So be safe and take your medication with you. Also, we need to talk about vaccines. There are places in this world, places where I've been, where they still have malaria, they still have typhus, they still have, I don't know what other, yellow fever and whatever. I used to have a little, I don't know, some of you may have seen it or may have had it. There were some little yellow books called vaccination cards. And I used to have all my vaccines with the stamps, with the labels, with everything else written in these vaccination cards. Now, we no longer get them here in the UK because everything is, I don't know, on an international database of some things. But anyway, have your vaccines. You don't know what vaccines you need? Not a problem. Go to your pharmacist. I have an amazing pharmacist up here in Scotland. So go to your pharmacist and tell them that you're going to be going in wherever. Are there any vaccines that you need to be given, or any pills or whatever? So, for instance, for all the time I worked in West Africa, Nigeria, Congo, etc., I think even for Malawi, yes, I would take a pill called Malarone. Malarone is the best one, I've been told, against malaria, which I had to pay for. Yeah. So even if your client or your employer may pay for all these things, you need to make sure that even if they don't, you pay for them yourselves. It's about your life and your health. And I cannot stress enough, your health and your life are not matters of skimping or being thrifty about. You have to be safe rather than sorry. There are essential things you need to take, such as have your Imodium or whatever anti-diarrhea pill there is in your country. You need to have pills for heartburn. You need to have a disinfectant spray of some sort if you cut yourself. Yeah. How are you going to disinfect the wound? I'm not saying buy a huge bottle, just have something that has at least 90% alcohol in it. Get some couple of bandages, get a mosquito spray. I, for one, when I go to Africa primarily, have about 4 bottles of mosquito spray on me because I know if there's a mosquito in a building, that's going to come and bite me. And I cannot afford to be bitten or get any other diseases, although, of course, I'm protected against malaria because I take those pills, but I don't know what else that mosquito carries, or that fly, or that spider, because you may be stung by God knows what. Yeah? So please play it very safely. Primarily, this is for the ladies, pardon me, but also for the gents. Do not flash your jewelry. Do not have any glaring jewelry. So if you have, I don't know, a diamond wedding ring or an engagement ring or diamond earrings, don't get me wrong, I have diamonds and I have a lot of them and I bought them over the years. They are, some of them are investment pieces. But when I travel overseas, I only have some minimal gold hoops in my ears, and that's about it. I don't have anything else because that would be the equivalent of you providing some horrible people with an invitation to rob you, to mug you, to goodness me, do any harm to you. Yeah. So no Breitling watches, no Audemars Piguet watches, Cartier watches. Leave them all at home. You are there to work and do a job. You're not there to put on a fashion show or flash your wealth or however in front of others. It's not the place, it's not the time. And again, it is not worth it. And I'll tell you something which might surprise you. You are much more likely to be robbed or mugged in a democratic country than you are to be robbed or mugged in Dubai, on the streets of, I don't know, Tashkent in Uzbekistan, or even Kazakhstan, or I would say even in Nigeria, where I've never had a problem. If you ask me, where's the place or which is the place that I felt unsafest in, that was New Orleans, on a street off the French Quarter. I've never felt more unsafe than I did one night. And funnily enough, I was on holiday back then with my husband. And because, let's say, I'm a big woman and I've studied, because I had to, some type of martial arts. I told my husband that night as we were walking back to the hotel, because I never thought we shouldn't walk the 5 minutes from our Marriott hotel to the French Quarter. I told my husband, get on this other side of me, so that those two people who I immediately judged as being unsavory characters had me first and had to deal with me first before they, let's say, might have attacked my husband. And I'm not going to tell you how I saved that situation because that's not the topic, but be ready to be surprised by some places. I mean, I remember I was in a market in Kyrgyzstan because I needed an extra pair of trousers. Mine had become torn due to some cliffs that I had to climb to go to a work site, etc., etc. And I went in to a normal Sunday market in Kyrgyzstan. Absolutely safe. No one cared about me. No one looked at me. No one tried to mug me or whatever. Absolutely beautiful. New Orleans, completely different story. Uh, And last but not least, as I suppose you're very much aware by now, watch what you say, when you say it, and who you say it to. Are you very wealthy back in the UK or the States or Germany or France? Keep that to yourself. Is your husband or your wife very well off? Keep that to yourself. Do you have 5 cars on your drive, latest models of whatever? Keep it to yourself. Do not mix business with pleasure. Keep your head on your shoulders and make sure you get home safely. That's all that matters. Thank you.